Hello everyone and welcome to another Table Ready live stream. I'm Harry from Fog of War, and this guy over that way, he's Adam from Dice of War, and we are joined by a special guest today. We've got Frank from Panzerschule. Say hi, Frank.
Hello folks, welcome to the stream.
So Christian can't make it. Apparently he's got a good excuse this time as opposed to his usual piss poor excuses for when he can't come along. So we reached out to Frank, and Frank very graciously agreed to come along. So
thanks, Frank.
Absolutely fantastic. Yes, thank you, Frank. We've had you on the stream once before, but just for everyone who doesn't know you, perhaps you should introduce yourself and talk about your channel, just to put you on the spot.
Well, Panzerschule, it's a painting and gaming channel. The main focus is Flames of War, which is good for this live stream. But I do a range of tutorials, and I like to do lots of battle reports as well, folks. I've got one coming up tonight, and I'm trying something new that might be of interest to folks. And I'm using the chapter facility on it so that people who don't want to see the whole report can just sort of bounce along through the red navigation bar and just look at the turn summaries. So we'll see how that goes. But it's painting and gaming. That's what the channel's all about.
Great. Well, that actually sounds like fun, because I've put chapters in my videos, but I don't do anything with them, apart from hiding the rude words in that nobody's found yet. So it's always worth looking at the chapter marks to see what's going on. So in the comments, Christian is actually saying he's going to give me a hard time later on because...
Yeah, he's going to turn up to do that, but anyway.
Yeah, that's true. So I can't feel very threatened. There was a possibility that the Restless Kaiser from Modelling for Advantage was going to be able to turn up, but he had a social engagement. So not a social disease, a social engagement. So he couldn't make it. But we will get him on the stream at some point in the future. But I don't know if anybody's noticed, but he and Johnny are taking the lead on a lot of the Berlin German stuff for Battlefront. So Battlefront have started picking a YouTube channel and focusing on getting them to run a bunch of stuff. So they're having, I think, Flames of War week sometime in the next upcoming week or two, where they're going to release a whole bunch of content on Modelling for Advantage. So just make sure that, you guys check that out. They did a great unboxing and all of that sort of stuff.
Cool.
So, Frank, you were saying you've been doing some stuff recently. So was that battle reports or painting or whatever? What have you been on to?
The main focus for battle reports has been the Berlin Soviet just now, because there's lots of interesting stuff there that you guys have already covered. So I'm going to be doing some tutorials like this. Try and get the camera up. This old Shelf Queen, as you call them. This is going to be a sort of end of the war King Tiger. I've got this great source picture, colorized picture, where you've got, for instance, hull red wheels, dark yellow hull red turret with dark yellow cupola, rear hatch, and then a fully camouflaged mantlet and barrel. And then it's covered in tarpaulins as well. So I'm going to do...
I know that photo. Yeah.
Yes, it's probably one that you have seen before. And I'm going to do a video on how I get the colours, how I paint it, how I make the tarpaulins. And I'm probably going to do a Panther term as well, because that's quite a iconic image from Berlin too. Just have it set into the cobblestones. And I'm using similar colours to this. So it's good for me from that point of view. So I'm going to get a couple of tutorials up. And then eventually, when I've got the book and get the guys around, we'll get some games in and some battle reports as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So you're going to build that Panther term from scratch, or is it a model?
Well, I've got quite a few Yag Tigers, Yag Panthers built over the past year. So I've got lots of turrets kicking about.
I did the same. I actually have a video on the channel about making one of those years ago. Because, the idea of just sticking a Panther turret on a concrete box and burying it in some, Berlin crossroads, that was kind of cool. So, I made one. just for fun. So it'll be interesting to see what yours looks like.
Yeah, it's good
So
for
I've done a
sorry, good for your collection, but you never know. You might actually want to use them. There are some missions.
Well,
Yeah.
there's a specific in the Berlin book. There's some specific missions which have them in it. So
Absolutely.
that's cool.
Yeah, so there's a whole section on fortifications and obstacles. So I can pull my barbed wire out again. I've got a whole bunch of that 8-inch by 2-inch barbed wire stuff that I made ages and ages ago that I'll be really looking forward to wheeling out again. So what did I cover just recently? I did a video on, there were some leaks, some photographic leaks of the plastic sprues for IS-3 and a mouse and the S-tank and what else was there? Oh, the Leclerc, the French tank for Team Yankee, the 3rd generation tank. So there was that, and I did a Berlin German release schedule one, so talking about all the different things that are coming up, some of which we're going to touch on in just a minute. And what about you, Adam? What have you been up to? You were telling me you'd made great strides in painting your stuff for our upcoming tournament.
No, I haven't. I've been trying to, but I get waylaid all the time. So I fully intended to have a whole heavy machine gun platoon for my SS Viking mid-war force that I'm doing, and I've got one guy painted so far. So hopefully, yeah, I've still got articles to do for the Berlin launch of Battlefront. I'm in the midst of doing those. I'll have another one finished tonight. So I've had one on. I'm doing one on the bedbug, one on the Waffenträger, which is actually really interesting. The Waffenträger one. There's a few other vehicles that I'd seen sort of historically or in games that I thought were different, but they're actually related to the Waffenträger. Yes.
Waffenträger.
Well, the Waffenträger was one of 3 prototypes. There was
I saw some of those.
So that was cool. And some other stuff. I'm in the local cinema thing up here running a small open air cinema, so they've been dragged into that too. But hopefully getting some stuff painted this weekend.
But just in case anybody missed that, as you slid it past quite quickly there, you have actually written a number of articles that have been featured on Battlefront's website about this particular release, like the bedbugs and the Waffenträger and things like that.
Yeah, so I'm a regular contributor to Battlefront for articles. Usually they get me to do articles for launch. So this time I've chosen to do an article on the bedbugs, another article on the Waffenträger. There'll be another article on SS Panzer Brigade Westfalen, which is a command card in the book. And the other,
and that's foreshadowing, because we might even be talking a little bit about.
We might even be talking about that day. I'm focusing more on the King Tiger part of Paderborn, not Bazooka Town, which is more what the command card's about.
Fair enough.
And then I'm doing another one on the Volkssturm, the 9th Volkssturm Division in Berlin. So
we might even get around to talking about those too.
Yeah.
So I was going to shame you for how much painting you haven't done for the tournament, but even though he's not here, that's Christian there saying, how are those knees coming along, talking about me painting some Desert Brits. And I've painted even fewer figures than Adam. And I believe, what was your score, Adam? How many had you painted?
One so far.
Right. So I have painted fewer than that. So that might give you some idea about how much work I've been doing.
You just painted up to the knees?
No, I haven't painted nothing.
Oh, no. Oh, okay. All right. Maybe next week.
Next week's not looking good. But anyway, we'll slide past that pretty quick.
Yeah.
We got a few people. Trekan saying, during the Battle of Monte Cassio.
I think he meant Monte Cassino.
Yep, that's okay. We're all good.
Yeah.
We can figure that out.
Yeah.
All right.
The Allies hated those. They were so hard to take out.
In fact, I think that was when I was doing mine. Most of the research photos I got were either on Berlin streets or on Italian hillsides. Yeah, usually with lots of burnt out tanks leading up to the now knocked out turret.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Oh dear. So shall I whip out my slides?
Ooh, yes, please.
All right, let's do that. Okay, so I know I suffer a bit from slide-itis, but let's have a look at what we're doing. So I've done a whole video on Berlin German. So we will talk a little bit about what's coming in Berlin German, but I don't actually want to spend too much time on exactly what all the products are and what have you.
So you said you've already got the Panzer II and the Wesper?
Yeah, I wasn't actually gonna highlight that very much because our Australian distributor never ever has stock in time for launch, and they suddenly did for this one, and I ordered them, and they had a street date about when they'd get shipped. But I pre-ordered them, and then they immediately picked them and shipped them, so they rocked up a couple of days ago. So I've been busy sitting there writing the script for the Panzer II.
Whoops, sorry about
plastic. But I'll be nice, Battlefront. I won't release anything until the embargo date's up for that. So.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask a question about it, but I won't.
You can ask a question. I might answer it.
Oh, I was just going to ask. So the Panzer II and the Wesper, they're two different sprues, yeah? It's not like...
They are.
Or is the
completely...
Wesper just a Panzer II with an add-on sprue, kind of like...
No, what they do, and in fact, if anybody wants to see that, the Modelling for Advantage released a video about those because they've been given advanced copies to have a look at. Basically, each one of them is on a single sprue but with two frames. And what happens is the Vespa has the track frame, which has the track and the lower hull and a bunch of other stuff. And then they have the Vespery stuff on the other one. And the Panzer II one has the same track sprue, or same track frame.
Okay.
But the Panzer II stuff on it. And can build a Panzer II-C and a Panzer II-F. So it's got two hulls.
So you can't build a Panzer II from the Wesper box?
No, you can't. They are completely separate.
Okay.
From the Vespa one, though, you can build a Marder 2, so you can build the SP gun version, yeah. All right, so much for me not saying anything about the Vespa and the Panzer 2 that I got that I shouldn't have, but...
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm sure everybody would love that. So, yeah, the Berlin German releases are through April and May 2023. And there's stuff on their website that tells you exactly what's coming when. I also have a video out that people can have a look at. Trekan's saying you can see the sprues on Battlefront's webpage too, so I'm assuming that's the Panzer II and the...
the Wesper.
The Vespa. So, yeah.
Droxley, no, I don't think you can make the look.
Let's have a look. What are we saying? No, it doesn't. No. And it would be too hard to do so because, I mean, that's a completely different shaped hull, different suspension, different everything. The Luke's just... There wouldn't be enough common bits to make it worth their while. But it does mean that it does count as the very, very first early war plastic kit from Battlefront because you can build the Panzer II-C. So what are we talking about? So Berlin German. It's the same sort of structure that they've done before. I don't know if anybody's been and had a look. So you get the book and the command cards and the unit cards and the Berlin German starter box in the first wave, and then there's a whole bunch of other waves with stuffs coming out, including a whole bunch of re-released version 3 infantry. Frank or Adam?
Delicious metal infantry.
Yeah,
your team metal. Do you want to talk about those a bit?
Me?
Yeah, you. Since you're the one going, metal infantry.
Look, it's the old the metal vampire assault gun infantry. And it's the
GE 848.
Oh, okay, yep, well, he knows them. And then they've also got the Winter Volkssturm Assault Company and the Volkssturm Rifle Platoon. I think that was it. Oh, and sorry, there's the weapons.
Panzergrenadiers.
Yeah. Then there's the heavy weapons and artillery platoons or troops that you can use to swap out for your normal infantry, so you can have a winter-themed army.
Yeah.
I think they're honestly some of the best German figures they've ever made for the Germans. So I mean, for any real super German player, I think that just loves their metal figures, get these. This is probably the last chance you're ever going to have to buy them. To be honest,
and they are direct only, aren't they? They're
direct only, and we used to hunt down for them on eBay and that sort of thing. I stupidly sold a whole force and immediately regretted it, and then spent another 6 months tracking down all the parts to get them all back again. So, yeah, look, if you really want a really cool thematic German force, grab those. They're great.
And they're a combination of winter greatcoats and the reversible winter and camouflage smocks, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there were a few people who were expecting to see them and were a bit miffed not to see them in Bulge German.
Yeah.
But they are here. They've come out and they've been re-released.
From what I gather, the factory Battlefront may have wanted to do it earlier, but they couldn't because the factory was just that far behind because of COVID.
There's only so much you can squeeze out of the factory at any one time. They know
that the people wanted them, and they were kind of saying, yeah, we'd like to, but they've finally, huzzah, hurrah, released them now.
And I know people want stuff all the time and want all the new stuff, and it's interesting because seeing those sprues the other week of the IS-3 and the mouse and that kind of stuff, those must be nailed down so far in the future, but they've got to have a release schedule and, stuff. You can't just dump it all out, and then can the factory make them and package them and get them out? So I know Battlefront take a lot of flack for, we want this and we want it now, and oh no, that won't be out until 2024. But I mean, there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I cannot keep up with reviewing the amount of stuff they do. I don't know. You guys haven't seen my review pile, but it's taller than me of stuff that I have, that I've bought, that I've paid money for, that I haven't reviewed because I just don't have the time to write and film reviews of all of that kind of stuff to find all the historical footage.
It's like you say, sometimes I actually wish they would slow down a bit to let us catch up with the painting. And then other people just want to go full steam ahead so they can add it to their stash, So I'm looking forward.
I'm a stash guy.
I know you are. Yeah.
Me too.
I'm looking forward to those metal Volkssturm, and they're going to go into my stash, But they're there for when I do have time to paint them. Yeah. And there's a few other things I wish were there but are not. But it's like there's always something new coming out.
I tell you what I picked up the other day, which is a little gems that I'd forgotten they built. The Italians had the Libyan Italian troops back from early war. I think they're some of the most characterful kind of mid-war, like Italian troops that I've seen. I really like those. So I've grabbed 2 blisters of those, and I'll be doing them up as a force. But it's one of those things that you kind of don't see a lot. And then when you do want them, they're gone. Sort of, yeah. But,
so Frank, you just gave me an interesting perspective there with the whole painting deal, because I mean, I have to wait for the Australian distributor to get them, buy them, get them shipped here, review them, build one, and then I'm done. Then put the video together and I'm out. Whereas you have to get them, build them, paint them, and then half the time stick them in a battle report as well.
Yeah.
So your job's harder than mine, man.
Yeah. But I've just got to have my toys, My collection is mainly built. There's just a few things I just never seem to get round to because something new comes along and you've got to get ready for a different kind of army list in your battle report. And, so certain things just fall by the wayside and go into the stash. So a wee bit of spare time, to catch up, I wouldn't mind. Another lockdown.
Yeah, because I've got, what have I got?
God.
Jag Tigers and Fallschirmjäger with assault rifle figures and all sorts of stuff. None that I'm ever going to field, but just I'd really like to review that, and I've bought them. And then Red Dawn happened, and you know, I haven't reviewed any of the British stuff, and I'm a British player.
Yeah,
You know,
I've not painted any of my British stuff, and I would really, really like to. I've got nearly everything sitting there. I just have painted infantry, and that's it.
So Trekan said, from what Peter said in the MFA live stream, I expect early war in 2025. I don't know. He wasn't that specific, but I just don't know. In case anybody missed it, Modelling for Advantage did a live stream with Wayne and Peter from Battlefront. And it's always great when they do that, because with very little prodding, Peter will run off and talk about all sorts of things he's not supposed to. You know, you can see Wayne trying to shut him up, you know. And they really went off in tangent. So it wasn't just Berlin German. They started running off and doing all sorts of stuff. And speaking of that, there's John from Modelling for Advantage. Hey, Johnny. So before we actually move on, there was this interesting comment I just saw. Panzer IV Kampfwagen says, "Hi, I'm interested in getting into Flames of War. Any tips or recommendations?" And I mean, I'm cognizant of the fact that we're 22 minutes in and we haven't got off the first Berlin German slide yet. But what would you guys say?
I would say YouTube is a great place to start. What I would recommend anyone who follows Flames of War to do on YouTube is each time they go into YouTube, go into the search bar, type in Flames of War, and set the filter to most recent, and then you'll be able to keep a track of what everybody who's active on the channel is doing, and that will get you all the kind of videos, painting videos, but also the kind of list videos. There's so many people doing good stuff on YouTube. You know, like Modelling for Advantage yourself, Breakthrough Assault, as well as Valley Gaming and Lack of Foresight Gaming, all these people. So by doing that, you'll find the content you want and also the producers that you want, you know, like that doing the kind of stuff. Yeah. So that's a good way for somebody who likes to watch YouTube to understand what's going on in the game.
So Droxlet just came in with 2-player starter sets. They have the miniatures rulebook in them. Any of the starter sets. So you get 2-player ones. So if you and a buddy want to start, they're always great value. There's a whole bunch of 2-player starter sets. I'm just wondering if there's any on the shelf behind me, but there's not. But there's also if you want to pick a period. So Flames of War has early war, which hasn't been updated to the latest version yet. There's plenty of mid-war, so if you want to do the desert or Russian Eastern Front, that kind of stuff. Or if you want to do late war, we're just coming to the end of late war. So the one we're talking about today is the Berlin German. So it's the last historical release for late war Flames of War. That's not to say there's not going to be a late war Leviathans or something that was teased a little bit on the Modelling for Advantage stream. But they're very good value, those starter sets. Would you agree with that, Adam?
Yeah, I think so. So he's said there that just then actually he was thinking mid-late war, probably British Australian.
Right.
I would, in that case, probably pick something like 7th Armoured British, because then you can go both mid-war and late war.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff is kind of the same.
And Australians are command cards for some of that too, aren't they? So
you can
have the British figures.
They have got older figures for Australians that are kind of hard to find, unfortunately, these days.
They're in my stash.
They're in my stash.
I paid a lot of money to Battlefront to get some of those shipped over.
But so I guess pick a period, find a starter set that suits the period in the nation that you want to play, and then I guess next is kind of either get a friend that's keen, or find a local gaming group that plays in the area and see what they play. the German Soviet tanks are very interesting. Yeah. Look, I just love everything. Yeah.
So
I find
Christian
something
couldn't
really
come on.
grows out.
Christian couldn't come on the stream, but he's busy chatting away down there.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's muddying it because he wants 14th Army
What,
in
there was
Burma.
no 14th Army? What?
No, there were, but
Forgotten
I
that.
forgot about them.
I can't remember.
Yeah. So Trekan very helpfully says 6 2-player starter boxes, Normandy, 2 for mid-war Desert, 2 for mid-war East Front, and 1 now very late war Berlin starter box. Yes.
Yes.
What's that? Clash of Steel?
Mhm.
There might even be a slide about that. Let's go back and have a look. But anyway, I hope that's of some help to you, Panzer. So back to there. Oh, I do know how to use this thing. How awesome's that? So just very quickly want to talk then about in the Berlin German book that's coming out that there are 8 new formations. So Frank, how would you characterize what these formations are like and how would you say they were very different from the bulge ones?
Well, this is a little bit of everything. This is where you can take your collection and put a list together with all the cool stuff that you would like to have put together. And not necessarily going to be great quality on the battlefield, but you're going to get the best out of the collection that you've got, certainly in terms of the armour. In terms of the infantry, they're more of what I would maybe call the equivalent of the armoured car formation, where you get really, really cheap formation and then get lots of really good support. Well, the infantry in this tend to be so cheap. I mean, I've not seen the price, the points price, but I reckon they must be so cheap that
It's
you're
about
then
5 or 6 points for one of the Hitlerjugend platoons. Like, it's real cheap. And you get like 9 or 10, some dumb number.
you get that as
But they're
big
crap, right? They're green,
yeah.
aggressive, so they're hit on like 2+ or whatever it is.
Yeah, some
these
are
are
hit on
what's
2s,
left.
some are 3s. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
but they've got an
what-
interesting militia rule, which means they don't count towards your reserves.
Yes, I did see that.
Yeah.
So what you're getting is your HQ might be veterans. They might be reluctant veterans.
Yeah. With the
but
old
then-
hand rule.
Yeah, with the old hand rule. But then what you'll get for everybody else is untrained green troops who are aggressive. So what did we say about the Hitler Youth? They're not here for a long time. They're just here for a good time. Yeah, Reckless 2+, Droxlit was reminding me. Yeah.
You can get veteran infantry in those formations, but as Frank said, you're not really getting the bang for your buck out of those. Like, you could probably choose one as like an anchor to hold something, or to be your assault platoon, and then the other guys sit back and hold stuff.
But surely this is the difference between choosing Bulge German and Berlin German. If you want veteran infantry, Fallschirmjäger that know what they're doing, and Tiger 2s, you'd go Bulge, right? If you want the scraps and the Hitler Youth and Panzer 2s and Tiger 2s in the same formation, this is what you'd go for.
I think the tournament players that really like or know how to min-max sort of stuff will probably have a lot of creative lists with this. Your Waffenträger is basically cut price Hornice. You're paying like 7 points less than you would be for 3 of those. So, I mean, you'll take that because all you want it for is to kill tanks. It doesn't matter what its armor is. It doesn't matter, So, yeah, I think it'll be a lot of fun lists, but I think they're going to be the skill level will be a little higher than the normal German lists to play.
You have to play on the basis that you're going to lose a lot, which might be different for a lot of German players. They're maybe not, unless they've played brigade formations, they're not going to be used to taking so many casualties. So you probably have to be a bit more direct with them than you can't fence with them, if you see what I mean.
And your Hitlerjugend, if you hide them in rubble, are going to leap out and scare the hell out of people with Panzerfaust, but they're not going to survive a lot of return fire, are they? You're going to want to get your points out of them, in them doing quick kills before they go away. certainly, I mean, I haven't played any of those, but that's when I was looking at the stats, reading the book, I'm thinking, yeah, you're going to want to get them in hard and get your money's worth out of them before they go away.
Definitely.
All right, so that's the formations. You do get the IR Panthers, so I don't know. A lot of people never spot the IR parts that are on the Panther sprue. They've always been on the Panther sprue since 2012.
In the Panther G,
in the Panther G sprue. There's even one there for the Yag Tiger, the Yag Panther. You can make the Yag Panther with IR. So there's those. And the tank training companies, and we'll talk a little bit about those in a second. So I'm going to move on if that's okay, if we're all done here.
Yep.
Oh, look, it's a tank training company. There we go.
Hey.
It's almost like I know what's on the next slide. So, yeah, this is the starter force that's come out with Berlin German. And you can see it's a real mixed bag. Yeah, so you've got a Tiger II and some Panzer IVs and a couple of Panthers and some Panzer IIs. So they, turned all the tank training schools upside down, shook out whatever training tanks were still operational, and stuck the trainees in them, and off they went. And that's very much that same thing of there's a veteran commander here, and then there's a whole bunch of,
nervous young men.
Yeah, it's like I can make the tank go forwards and backwards, and I'm still working on left and right. But
I'm stuck in a hole.
I can make gun go boom.
Yeah.
I can't hit anything yet, but it goes bang most of the time. Do the Germans get captured Shermans? Because
the last time, yes.
Yeah. Okay, because not in this book, no. Because I saw they do get looted T-34s as a
looted T-34-85.
Oh, okay.
Yep, but no, you don't get a looted Sherman in this one. That was in D-Day. I think they had that in the D-Day book.
Yeah, because they captured a whole bunch of those off the beaches, didn't they?
I remember there was a battle where the 12th SS Panthers, I think, captured like a whole company of Shermans. But that was after D-Day. That was
Whoops.
In between. Yeah.
No playing Germany for me.
Not like we expected. Yeah.
So what did we say? If they captured it, did it become a Sherman Shepherd?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh dear. So this starter force is a mixed bag of training guys. And I think that leads us into this next slide where I think you're going to get very excited about this, Adam.
Yeah, so a little bit thing I'm going to talk about today is the Battle of Paderborn. So in the Berlin German book, you can actually represent two of the things that happen here. So it's Panzer Brigade, SS Panzer Brigade Westfalen. It was made to fight off the US 2nd and 3rd Armored Divisions that were trying to close the Ruhr Gap and trap the Germans in a pocket. So they were asked to take Paderborn. The Germans in the area just had a couple of training companies. And that's all the Americans thought they had, and they thought it'll be easy. We'll take it in a couple of days. Unfortunately, the Germans also had two King Tiger companies from Schwer Panzer Battalion 507, which were there, which were just getting re-equipped with Tiger IIs. So it was the second and third company. First company was still on the Eastern Front in the Tiger Ones fighting the Soviets. But I think in the 8 months that they've been on the Eastern Front, I think they were there in September 44 and were pulled back, or less than 8 months, sorry. They'd already killed over 600 or knocked out 600 Soviet tanks. So they were pretty experienced crews, but they'd taken losses. So the US 3rd Armored Division was basically broken up into 6 task forces. Each task force came from a They had 3 combat commands which would make up the whole division, and the combat command was basically a regiment, and then each combat command would break up into 2 task forces to take the area.
So the structure, if I remember, is Combat Command A, Combat Command B, and then they had Combat Command R for reserve, didn't they? That's
It was A, B, and R, but it didn't. I don't know if it actually was A, B, and reserve. How they put it in this one, Combat Command B, which was Hogan and Richardson on the closer to Borchen there. They were put in, and then Combat Command R, which was Wellborn and Lovelady. They were to the south, and A, which was Kane and Doane, was in reserve.
Right.
But you're probably right. That's how they did it. But I guess they decided to put the reserve. Command.
But I just think that's the naming convention for the organisation that they had at the time. Yeah. So Paderborn was actually a well-known tank training school, wasn't it? There was actually a tank training facility in the town.
Yeah. So the most famous one was, I think it's Seelow. I think that's. Apologies to any German out there. I'm probably murdering.
Is it Seelow? Yeah.
Seelow. Yep.
I think so.
Yeah. So that was where the King
Tigers. Check out and let us know, please.
Yeah, I'm sure he will. So they were re-equipping there. So Panzer Brigade Westfalen was basically 2 infantry regiments, SS infantry regiments, Holzer and Meyer, and those are the names of the commanders. That's why they called them that. And and 507th. So they had a lot of King Tigers. I think the 3rd company had 15 King Tigers. The 2nd company had 9 King Tigers and 3 Jag Panthers. Jagd Panthers, sorry, Trican.
Panthers.
Yes. And also I think they had a HQ company. I'm not sure how many that was. It's probably 1, but I'm not sure. But so Task Force Richardson pushed forward into Borchen, I think on the 30th of March in 45, and thinking they'd take it pretty easily. Well, they started off at 9:30 and they got bogged down the whole day. And I think they lost most of at least half their Shermans in the fighting. And they ended up calling it Bazooka Town because there was, it was basically a series of ambushes with veteran NCO, SS NCOs and the training guys, just ambushing all the Shermans as they tried to push into the city.
So let me flip. There we go. So we're talking about Bazooka Town.
Yeah, Bazooka Town. So that photo of the Stuart in the bottom there is actually a photo of the at the battle of a US 3rd Armoured Stuart. So they did have Stuart light tanks. They had Shermans. I think there was also some M36 tank destroyers in the area, which actually managed to take out a few of the King Tigers. But that's about all they had to take them out, because the Shermans they just bounced off the Tigers. They couldn't do anything about it. Yeah. And then you can see the Sherman above that Stuart. That's actually a result of a Panzerfaust to the behind, right up the clacker. So, it's just a small hole. But as you said before, Harry, molten shot of metal.
Yeah, so the way that heat warheads work, the explosive makes a very narrow cone of what's essentially the copper liner gets forced into a very long, hot explosion that just eats its way through. So it makes a really small hole.
Yeah, copper jet or something.
Yeah, little copper jacket on the inside makes that go. But as soon as you sent me that one to put on the slide, all I could get was Donald Sutherland vibes from Kelly's Heroes. With the, I could just let them shoot holes in me. That's the only way I can.
Negative waves.
Yeah. So there's some negative waves right up the engine.
Yeah. So and that there's a command card in the Berlin book, SS Westfalen, Panzer Brigade Westfalen. And it's basically infantry formation. You get a HQ, same as the Berlin formation in the book, of a veteran person, and then you've got a heap of it's basically SS platoons from the Bulge, but
Yeah.
haven't got MGs anymore. They've got rifle and MGs, so they're cheaper and their rate of fire is less.
Right.
You can get some scout infantry for them, but the cool thing is that you get a Panzerschreck 10-gunner platoon. So I think, who was it that was Droxlet was complaining earlier about how from version 3 to version 4 the Panzerschrecks used to be on a medium base with 2 teams.
Yeah.
Now in version 2 they've dropped back to 2. Well, in this one specific platoon, which might not help for everyone, but that actually has 4 rifle MG platoons. One of them is a command, and then 3 Panzerfaust 10-gunner teams, which are actually back on the medium base. So they've got rate of fire 2 instead of the normal rate of fire 1.
Right.
But you can also take that in any Berlin force. It's not. So the Westfalen's got its own design, but the 10-gunner teams you can actually bring into any infantry.
Right. Fair enough.
Black box option then, basically.
It's not a black box option. It's like one of those cards that they've got where it says
modifies the formation.
Yeah, you can add this to the formation. I can't remember the exact wording. I'll find it. But yeah.
So I'm just flipping backwards and forwards in the stuff that you sent me. So there's the Schwerer Panzer Abteilung 507.
Yep, that's 507, and that's their company symbol. And
Tiger 1s and Tiger 2s.
Yeah, that's the Tiger. That's an actual picture of a 507 Tiger 1.
Yeah.
And so I'm just trying to find this card quickly. 10-gunning platoon. It's 11 points, and it's a build for any formation for the Berlin Battle Group. So you can add it to the Berlin Battle Group formation.
That's a lot of points.
Yeah, it's got lots of Shreks.
Fair enough.
That'll devastate tank units.
Yeah.
You want a slow moving and slow firing, I take it. So you'll be able to go after units, get 3 shots, let's say, and then go in for the assault. That's quite nasty.
Yeah. Well, they've got Panzerfaust as well on top of the Panzer. So
Shreks,
yeah,
right.
It's mega bazooka town, basically. I'm just trying to see. Sorry. No.
Well, while you're looking at that, so this is the other card. So again, it's Tiger 2s and the 3rd US Armored Division is coming at them with a bunch of Shermans and Stuarts and what have you.
So that's a US 3rd Armored Division Sherman, and that guy in the picture there is actually Major General Maurice Rose, and he was the highest ranking US general killed in the I don't know if it's the whole war or at least the European theater. Yeah, and he was actually killed in this ambush by the King Tigers. Well, it wasn't an ambush; he kind of ran the wrong way, but
wasn't it? They came up to some tanks they thought were Pershings, and they turned out not to be.
Yeah. So what happened? So if you go back to that map of the area.
Yeah, sure.
So you can see Wellborn there. So Richardson was stuck in Borchen. They're all shut up the whole day.
Yeah.
And all these were pushing at once. It wasn't this and then this. They're all pushing at once, trying to take it. So Task Force Wellborn went into Eitland, took that area and went, okay, that's great. Now we're going to go up and help them at Borchen. So there's a road that goes up between Eitland and Borchen.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened, the commander of the 3rd King Tiger Company had split his force up into 3 Zugs or 3 platoons.
Yeah.
And he put 2 King Tigers either side of that road, 2 King Tiger Zugs either side of that road.
Yeah, so they cut the road between those 2 towns, didn't they? Yeah.
And then he was on top of the hill, basically where that formation image is, overlooking the area. So he could see everything the Americans were doing and radioing to his blokes. And so the Americans could see them. And they went, okay, we're Americans. What do? Do you call in Arty or do you call in airstrikes? Well, Arty's not close enough, so we're going to call in airstrikes. So they called in airstrikes on the area, on those King Tigers that were either side of the road. And bombs, bang, bang. fire, explosion, smoke. They've gone, yeah, we've wiped them out. They're dead. Nothing could survive that. And continue the attack, boys. So they've rolled forward, and immediately 7 Shermans went boom, 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 dead. So nothing. The airstrike hadn't done anything to the King Tigers, and they wiped out 7 Shermans, and then the guys on the hill started firing as well. And I think in the period of like the period of a few minutes, they wiped out 7 Shermans. They were fighting the whole day, and I think at the end of the day, they lost 17 Shermans, 17 half tracks, and 1 M36 tank destroyer.
Yeah.
But
what happened was General Rose was actually moving from one unit to the other.
Yeah. So he went
in a couple of jeeps and a command car.
Because he went up to Borchardt to find out what was the problem with Richardson. They said, we can't get through, we're stuck. So they got, right, I'll go see Wellborn and find out what's wrong with them. And the officers were saying, no, you don't need to go. He's saying, I'm going to do it. He went up there, as you said, and then saw what was happening. He called in Task Force Doan to help. That they just lost more Shermans. So then they went, all right, we're going to get encircled here if we don't leave. So they started to pull back. Now he went the way back towards Ettlin, thinking that there was nothing in the way. He couldn't hear any fighting. And then it was getting dark. It was like,
Well, was that because the Germans had won that bit already?
Yeah, because they just wiped everyone out.
So there's no fighting because,
no fighting because there's no
we
fighting.
win.
Yeah, so he's, as you said, it was dark. He's running up the road. He's gone, oh, look, these must be our new Shermans. Pershings, sorry, that are there.
Yeah.
And what they've done is gone right past some King Tigers. Though King Tigers have, I think, shot up an armoured car. Everyone else has tried to flee, but the general and his guys got stuck in the Jeep and they surrendered. Now, unfortunately, I think there was some sort of miscommunication or accident, and the 2 guys that he was with, the German tank commander had his submachine pistol out, pointed at them and told them to drop their weapons. The 2 guys that were with him, they just had hand like rifles and whatever, so they put them down. But the general had a pistol on a holster, and that was a lot harder to put the weapon off. So I think he was having trouble getting his belt off. That's what they say happened. And he couldn't get it off, so he started to pull his pistol out to drop it. But the German guy thought he was going, and everyone was shouting, drop your weapon, drop your weapon. And they thought he was going for his pistol. So they shot him and they killed him. So that was pretty distressing, I think, for the rest of the armoured division once they found out what happened.
Yeah, also weren't there later in the battle then there were an awful lot of reprisals against the SS troops because everybody was remembering Malmedy, which had only been a couple of months before.
Exactly. So there was reports of 100 SS troops getting executed, and there's no evidence, but I mean, who knows?
Sure.
Yeah.
So that's the battle for Paderborn, and that's the sort of thing that you could use that tank training company box to build.
So exactly, the tank training company. Yeah, so they actually not only had just the King Tigers, they also had a heap of leftover Panzer IIIs, Stugs, and just mixed matches to try and. So they actually, I think the SS Regiment Holzer in, I'm sorry, Trekkan, Scherfede. I don't know. I probably said that wrong. Down the bottom there at Rexon, near Task Force Lovelady, they had a heap of the light medium panzers, which they lost later. But Spammer, I'd be happy. The Germans actually captured one of the Task Force Lovelady Shermans and used it against them.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I remember hearing about that. Yeah, so that's Paderborn. Is there anything else you wanted to say about that before we move on?
There was one thing. After the war, now, as Trekkan said, there's a lot of British in that area in the Cold War. And they used to do a lot of tours around the area. And a British officer went on a tour talking about the Paderborn fighting. and there was a British officer there giving the talk for what happened, and also speaking in German to an older man that was there.
Yeah.
And turns out he was actually one of the tank commanders for the King Tigers in the area.
Yeah.
And basically they asked him, because that position that they had there was really a strong position. And they basically asked, why would you abandon that position? And what the old guy said is, I'll just read this quickly. With the part of the tour concluded, the major opened the floor to questions. I was too bashful to put my hand up, so I held my tongue. A few hands were raised, and the first question was put to the major, who was the British major. Why would the Germans give up such a brilliant fighting position so soon? The major turned to the little old man, repeating the question in German. After a brief exchange, the major responded on the old man's behalf. I was so low on ammunition and fuel, and it was getting dark, and my gunner was still in training. So I made it easy for him to shoot the tanks. So he left because his gunner was that inexperienced that he couldn't see they had almost no ammunition. And he just thought, I'm not putting this poor young fella through it. I mean, this guy was an experienced veteran. Yeah. So they just knew that it doesn't matter if we can't hold it if we've got no ammunition or fuel. So
Trekan says Shafade.
Thank you, Shafade.
We really should get Trekan on so he can just help us as our German language consultant.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just thought this was a really interesting battle. If you look this up on Wikipedia, it's like a 3-sentence thing. Yeah. And it's nothing.
And we definitely found out this week, don't ask ChatGPT.
No.
Because I did that. I asked it for a summary of the battle, and it just made some shit up. Like, I'm looking at it going, wow, that's completely wrong. Yeah. And it gave me crap when I said that's not right. It actually got really defensive. It's like, come on, ChatGPT, calm down, man.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's move on, because the next battle we want to talk about is this one, the Halber Pocket. And Frank, you wanted to talk a little bit about that one, didn't you? The 9th Army.
Yeah, this battle, to me, it kind of sums up the chaos that there was at the end of the war, when you've got one side who's absolutely determined to defeat the other, and the other side who are either too scared or too indoctrinated to give up. So you get a situation where an entire army is cut off behind enemy lines. It's kind of like, the way I think of it, it's almost like an amoeba kind of working its way across a Petri dish to try and get to safety. And the price it's got to pay to do that, yet they're still determined that they won't stop fighting. Yeah. And this is an army that is not determined to get to Berlin. It's an army that's determined to get to a river and to the US side to join up with the 12th Army.
Because they actually chose not to go to Berlin when ordered, didn't they? Yeah. General Busser just went, I can't do that.
My loyalty is to his army, to the men he serves with, but also to the huge number of civilians that picked himself up and joined the columns.
And I mean, we're talking tens of thousands of civilians.
Yeah, and everybody's above ground in this situation, which means when there are planes dropping bombs, whether discriminate or targeted, where there's artillery barrages coming in, there's no cover for anybody. Yet still, they would rather take that pain than surrender to the Soviets. And the chaos of that situation, the motivation of both sides, the quite merciless approach to both sides in that situation really sums up for me the kind of like the almost inevitable final clash of the war. You know, this isn't Germans in defensive positions with the Soviet trying to break in. It is coming down to death or survival, I suppose. So in that respect, it's, you know, really quite a dramatic example of a pocket battle.
So what happened there, if I understand correctly, is after Seelow Heights, there was the breakthrough in the north, and that's Zhukov. And I think it's Konev with the
Yeah.
first Belarusian
His
below.
army swung down
Yeah,
from the
so
south.
he's the south arm. So he's come below the Ninth Army and then turned north to cut them off. Sorry, I'm doing that thing with my hands that's completely useless because I'm pointing at the map and it doesn't make any sense. But yeah, so with Seelow, Zhukov's come and cut them off to the north, and then Konev has come and swung around to the south and then swung north again.
And then you've got the Ninth Army trapped there, but they're
Yeah.
not fighting against a solid line of
No,
Soviets, because the Soviets are pushing around Berlin. They're thinking we've got to stop this army getting to Berlin, and then it's let's stop it going west. So the Soviets are kind of all over the place. The Germans are all over the place, and it's just because you can imagine within the Ninth Army, it's still got a command at a higher level, individual unit level, but they're not really talking to each other. They've not got ways of communicating and organising. It's just get what you can together for the next move, and then try and keep the rear guards in action. But it's hard to have a rear guard when you're entirely surrounded.
and running out of ammo, and as Trekan's saying, fuel.
Fuel.
Yeah. So
it's a very dramatic kind of fight. I think it's
and
also
desperate.
There's not a lot of consideration given for non-combatants in it, and if you're a Soviet, imagine you're a Soviet gun line and you've been told to watch this road because some Germans are coming along, and then the entire Ninth Army is coming, and they're
Comes
not
breaking
stopping.
out to the west. Yep.
They're not stopping, so
Yep.
you're going to be in trouble.
Because they broke out to the southwest through Halber, heading down that way. And again, the main Soviet combat troops had moved past there and up to the outskirts of Berlin. So what they're attacking into, the Ninth Army, as they're trying to bugger off, are the logistics lines.
Yeah.
So they're hitting artillery troops and rear area guys and logistics and ammunition guys and all of that until the Soviets figure out that, yeah, they're heading west, they're not heading north to Berlin, and turn some guys around to actually put some combat power that way. So in that way, it was actually quite a threat to the Soviet front there, because those guys didn't go the way they were expecting. They were whacking into the combat troops.
all the time Stalin's saying, Berlin, Berlin, Berlin.
Get on with it, yeah.
Yeah. So it's, like, as I said, it's kind of like this really a good example of the climactic destruction of the opposing forces rather than the capture of an individual place, so to speak. It's the real sort of fight for survival and the real crazy fight for revenge, basically.
So the Ninth Army, would they have had a lot of replacements as well? Would there be a lot of green troops in there, or were these guys a reasonably well-trained veteran formation still?
Because they were rebuilt. It was a rebuilt army, the Ninth Army, rebuilt and then stuck on the Seelow Heights, and units pulled in from everywhere. Some of them would have been good and experienced. I think there was some from Italy, for instance, who probably weren't as battered as units were from elsewhere. But in terms of leadership, it was well led. Experienced generals in charge of it. In terms of motivation, it was well motivated, but it wasn't motivated in the way that British Army troops were in Berlin. They were motivated to save themselves. And
you'd have to be a pretty ballsy German commander at that time of the war to get an order for you to break out to join the defence of Berlin and just go, no, we're heading west.
That's kind of like taking it right up to the last second and then saying, no, we're not going to play anymore. It's like, this sounds a bit daft, but it's almost like a scam, where you get scammed and you commit more and more to it because you can't accept that it's not right, it's not real. These guys
But also, it's
accepted
not
that.
realistic to have asked them to. I mean, they were never going to have enough combat power to push their
No.
way
Yeah.
to Berlin through the First Belorussian Front and, you know,
Yeah, because
I mean, the 8th Guards Army were the guys who came from Stalingrad. These guys knew what the hell they were doing. You know? Yeah.
I just, anytime you read anywhere, in this last month of the war, it's every German unit is trying to surrender to the US or the English. They're trying to get the hell away from the Eastern Front and the Soviets. And then, there's a lot of places that get caught up and have to. But, or I think even ones that surrendered in Austria actually got turned over.
These guys did. Most of the 9th Army got repatriated back to Soviet hands. Yeah. No, I saw some stuff with numbers in, and they weren't fun numbers.
No.
And like one of his specialities was destroying pockets. He would always leave a back door.
Yeah.
And it's on you go. And then that's where he would direct his air power and his artillery and so on. So he was in a good position to deal with the pocket, but the focus was Berlin. But if you read a book called The Last Panther by Wolfgang Naust, it's supposed to be a memoir, but I don't know if I believe it because it's a bit too cinematic, right?
Right.
But that'll let you know what trying to survive in a moving pocket is like, because death just comes in from anywhere and everywhere. And just try to keep moving forward and watching your back and everything. It's an interesting read. He also did Tiger Tracks as well. Once again, I think the general consensus is he's a bit a creative.
Remembers with advantages the deeds he did that day.
Well, it's
to
not
be a bit Shakespeare-y.
He spent most of those stories out of his head on morphine and Pervitin, but he's got incredibly descriptive passages, whereas I think it would just be a blur.
Yep, fair enough.
But it's still a good book to give
One
you
of the most disturbing history books I ever read was the Berlin book by Anthony Beauvoir. And what happened as Berlin was taken and what happened to the civilian populace and, to have lived through those times, you just get a real sense of that absolute end of days kind of Gotterdammerung horror of what that was all like. So, I mean, we can all sit here and go, oh, look, there's maps and we've got arrows and all of that kind of stuff, but,
And that's what Hitler wanted. He wanted the end of Germany, they're not strong enough to survive, let them all die.
Yeah, he's going to take it down with him. And not just him, like the Czechoslovakians, when they surrendered, there was a lot of German Czechoslovakians, Volkssturm, that weren't treated very well at all. Reprisals. So,
Anyway, so that's the Halber pocket. So we've got
Beautiful
some really
figures.
cool pictures that Frank sent. So let's have a look at those. So I'm assuming the top one, Frank, is a historical image of the Ninth Army, and they don't look like they're having a good time there.
Trying to hide in the woods, going through all the wooded trails, with spotter planes buzzing about above them, calling in airstrikes and artillery. And what can you do in that situation, eh? There's nowhere to hide.
Absolutely. So Trekan's saying at Stalingrad, Soviets lost 489,000 men in 76 days. During the Battle of Berlin, the Soviets lost 352,000 men in 23 days.
Yeah.
So, it was...
Berlin or bust.
Yeah. So what's that bottom one? So that's your figures, your beautiful paint jobs there.
Yeah, just dug out some old soft skin transports and took a couple of pictures of the ambush scene with some Soviets thinking that they're in a turkey shoot, but it probably won't turn out that way. Softskins are great, for eye candy. You don't really use them in the game, but they're still a great thing to have in your collection. And I'd like to use them a bit more in my games and just have them sitting around beside guns or such, like, just purely for the look.
So if anybody hasn't seen Frank's channel, that's the kind of stuff that you see on the table when there are battle reports or painting tutorials or that kind of stuff.
I call them battlefield bling, Frank.
Yeah. And
so a bit like this?
Yeah, that's it. And you might not be able to buy these anymore from the Battlefront range, but there's still loads of 3D printing options that are out there.
So what am I seeing there? Is that a Steyr
7
command car?
Yeah. It's a horse.
Yeah, a horse. That's right.
Some, what is it, 6s and
7s?
sevens?
Said 7. Oh, is that a Kubelwagen at the back there?
Yep, little Kubelwagen.
Kubelingenwagens.
Yes.
That's the old Scout Kubelwagens where you had 2 on a base.
Right. And is that an RSO tractor at the back there, right at the back of shot?
No, I've got some of them, but no, that's just more 6s and 7s.
Right, okay.
SDKF said 6s and 7s, I think.
A half track there.
I was going to say, being looked over by a quad 2 centimetre.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so we've cracked over an hour and 6, but we've got a couple more to get through. We might just do these very quickly if everybody's all right with that. We've still got 10 people who are hanging in, watching the stream, so we'll keep going. So, Waffentrager. We talked briefly about that before. So it's a great big 8.8 centimetre Pak 43 on a little chassis. So if I remember correctly, this little chassis is actually made with Panzer 38T components. It's not actually a derivative of the chassis. It just uses the road wheels and suspension parts from that to make what was meant to be like a universal little tractory thing that you could stick all sorts of different guns on.
Yeah, weapons carrier. It's got in.
And this isn't a late war project. This was like in 1943. This thing just bubbled along until 45, and they were still making prototypes.
Yeah, I think they talked about it in 43, and then they really looked hard about it in 44, and then just with everything else.
But it was a low priority project.
Exactly, yeah. And then by the time they've kind of realised, oh, hang on, we need it, it was too late. They hadn't got enough of anything to make them. So
I think it was less that. It was more that, we've got these, we might as well chuck the ones that we've got into the defence of Berlin.
Well, I think they said they found about parts for 22 of them in the factory, the Soviets did. So, but they basically run out of gun barrels. Right. So, the time when the Jag Tigers were supposedly given 88 millimeter guns instead of the Pak 43, these guns. So I think that was that period where they were running out of guns, and so they've given the guns from those to the Jag Tigers, and so they could have had more, but they just were running out of everything to make them.
Droxlit saying, funny how much use the Panzer 38T chassis had. It was used for everything, man. Yeah. It was just all the way. Yeah.
Also, that's partly because the factory wasn't getting bombed as well, I think.
Yeah.
It was whole projects that were cancelled because factory bombing. And the factory could just bubble along quite nicely.
Yeah. And so basically I see it as a cut price Hornies. It's got slightly less. So the Hornies has got a side armor 1. This one hasn't got any side armor. I think the movement might be slightly. Oh, the Hornies has a machine gun. This doesn't have a machine gun. They'd liked it to have a machine gun in the design phase, but it just never made it. Yeah. And apart from that,
two front armor, so that's not going to stop anything much.
No, and also
it's rifles and machine guns.
Yeah, machine guns. It'll stop those, and it's trained instead of veteran.
Yeah, that's the key for me. If it's only trained and your stormtroopers for a light vehicle like that, you want to blitz and shoot and scoot.
Yeah.
So being trained, that makes it a bit more risky.
And that's even worse with the green troops. So if you've got green troops and you're trying to stormtrooper them out, even if you make the stormtrooper out, there's no guarantee you're going to shoot and scoot back into cover.
Yeah.
And that's really embarrassing, like when you roll the dice and you go, oh, okay, I'll just sit here then so you can shoot the crap out of them.
Yes, yeah. But you can ambush them. They can be in ambush, so yeah.
Yeah.
But
So Alan's saying, any ideas on what paint schemes the Germans would have been using, or a mixture of anything they had? Thinking of my days in Berlin and the British Berlin camo.
I think a lighter dunk gelb than what they've got there. That's more of a mid-war one. They're probably, because they're running out of pigment.
Right.
So they would have had a lighter dunk gelb. And then they had all sorts of different schemes. They had like weird striped ones, ones just with green and red because they didn't have anything else to put on it.
And there was a lot of stuff where it wasn't that chocolate brown, it was oxide brown.
That's right. It was like a red brown.
So it's the undercoat. Yeah.
Yeah.
So undercoat, spray a bit of Dunkelgelb on the outside of it as well, and there you go.
Yeah.
Or something like a Waffentrager that came in right at the end, you could probably be very creative in your painting. You know, other things like Panzer IVs and half-tracks, whatever, they've been around forever. So they've been painted in standard ways, but something like a Waffentrager or the Klein Panzer Wanzer and such likes, you know, I think you could be quite creative. One thing I want to say, that, you know, the octopus camo on the King Tiger?
Yeah.
A lot of people think that's really cool. Do you think when the crew turned up to pick up the King Tiger, they went, mate, you made it look like an octopus? You know, we're all looking at things really cool, but the King Tiger commander said, I'm not going to, and that it looks like an octopus.
You need to lay off those meth pills, mate.
Yeah. Less Pavaten, more coffee.
So speaking of the Klein Panzer Wanzer, or the bedbug, as I believe it's called, yeah, the bedbug. So you wrote an article about that, didn't you, Adam?
Yeah. So I do like them. I like tiny tanks. This is no, I don't think they were grey. Unfortunately, they look cool, but no grey tanks. But no reason you can't do it if you like it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So these are.
So this is bonkers, isn't it? This is like a Borgward demolition carrier.
It is exactly a Borgward
that
demolition
they've
carrier.
nailed 6 Panzerschrecks onto.
Yep, and some
on
smoke
a stick.
launchers, which I kind of thought they should have put some rules in for that. Made it maybe harder to hit or something a turn. You could shoot a little.
So is that what those things are on the front of the hull?
those 3 things at the front are smoke launchers.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, but basically this is the Borgward C. They had 3 variants: A, B, and C.
Borgward 4, wasn't it?
Yeah, but the C variant basically had an upgraded engine, which I think most of these were, so it could go a little bit faster. It could probably go about, I think they said, was it 30 miles an hour, something like that, which was reasonably fast back then.
Yeah.
But had literally no armor, like could have stopped a machine gun. And this thing was on a movable mount, I guess, for the Panzerschrecks.
Yeah.
Shrek, sorry. But they've kind of gutted the rate of fire. I'm a little bit disappointed by that because it used to be 3-2 for the rate of fire for them, and now they're 2-1.
And there were some specialist version 3 rules, weren't there, about you had a salvo template, and when you fired, you took the salvo template off. And
I can't remember.
I was reading that stuff going, that's really complex.
But yeah, so I mean, they've made it easier, simple, I guess. They've just kind of rolled it and said this is what it does. It's still got Stormtrooper, but they're trained. So as Frank said before, you're going to have less chance of making your blitz or your scoot and shoot if you need it.
Yeah.
But if you've got a unit of 3 of them and you blitz, that's still 6 shots in the side of something. 5 anti-tank 11, 5 power 5 plus. So unless it's something really big, you're either going to bail it, or you're going to, if you fail your 5 power, or you're going to kill it if you make your 5 power. So probably good for taking on something like a T-34 or Shermans or something.
So what you can't see... Oh, sorry, Frank.
I was going to say they're going to attract a lot of fire as well.
Yeah.
And you notice that they're fearless, and a firepower check is going to be required to destroy them. So, you know, they could be one of those little tanks that it's easy to hit, but really hard to kill. And if you
You'd
don't
chase
kill
them
it,
around the battlefield. Yeah.
Yeah.
you're going to regret it. So
And they'll
could
be
quite a
annoying.
nuisance. A total
Yeah.
bed bug.
So anyway, that's the box for it. But they're tiny. If you actually have a look in, they're just that little bit there is it.
Yeah.
And they're resin, so it's the tracks and everything is all as one piece. So I think there's the whole tracks and everything. There's a figure you can glue into the driver's spot, and there's the metal piece for the Panzerschreck launcher. So it's 3 pieces.
And
With
that
that
crew
particular
compartment is really tight, by the way.
Yeah.
I recommend you cut your driver to size before you paint them.
Yes. And the website actually says, paint this guy before you glue him into his hole. Because there'd be no painting him in there after.
Oh,
after
he
you've
can be
glued him
green.
in.
That's about it. Frank, what were you saying earlier about how you'd probably look at maybe mounting these guys on a base just to protect the tracks?
Yeah, these
Yeah.
are one-piece resin. As far as, apart from the driver and the Shreks, they're one-piece resin. But the tracks, as you can see from the picture, they stick out quite a bit from the wheels on the ground level, and they're very thin. So if you're familiar with Battlefront resin, you know that just like all resin products, there's a bit of a brittle edge to it. So I found with these that to preserve the tracks, I put them on just medium-sized bases and just put a little bit of brick, broken brick, urban kind of terrain around them as well, just to really set them in the right kind of scene too. And that way you didn't end up with it was almost inevitable when I first had them
But they
that you
get
end up with
broken.
all these broken track edges, and it just helps preserve that brittle.
I'm not a
vulnerable
big fan of vehicles on bases, but you know what? I'd go along with you for that one. I think that might be worth it. I was just astonished when I got it and had a look and went, oh, it's all that foam in there and there's so little actual vehicle.
Yeah. So these are 5 points for 3. And as Droxlet was sort of saying, if you had a whole formation, it'd be great. I think it would be. But you can only take 2 units of 5, 2 units of 3 of this. So I think
I carefully covered up that number so Battlefront wouldn't get grumpy there, Adam.
Well, they'll be
The
right.
graphic.
They'll be okay. They've put it there somewhere. Yeah, I think it'd be fun. It's not going to be. It'd be fun in a thematic battle. I think. I mean, and Berlin's the only time you can take them anyway.
Yeah,
but if you
absolutely.
had these with some Hitlerjugend or some Volkssturm,
Oh, man.
lots of little annoying stuff.
That would be so annoying to dig out of the rubble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it looks like something that's being designed by a computer game designer, doesn't it? It doesn't look like something from the real world. Just lots of tubes.
Well, I was thinking
lots
of
rocket.
the US Army did the ONTOS a bit later on with the M40 recoilless rifles on a little chassis for
The
Vietnam.
ONTOS,
So that's
yeah. They look cool. Yeah.
So what do we still got to look at? So we'll just very quickly talk about some of the other stuff that's coming up for Berlin.
These
So
are some of my
is
favorite figures.
yeah. So these are the Panzersturm figures, aren't they?
Yeah, what are they? You said you knew it from rote before.
GE
Harry. What's
848.
going on? GE 848.
Yeah.
What's it
Because
called?
apparently they tell you can do that with the escort platoon guys from Bagration.
Oh, you could.
You
Yeah.
could, but they don't have the very cool infrared sights on them.
Yeah, they don't look as awesome as these guys.
No, these do look pretty
Yeah.
awesome.
They're really nice sculpts as well, right across.
Yeah.
Similar to the Volkssturm sculpts.
Yeah.
Mm.
So anyway, so they're introducing this technology right at the end of the war. So again, you've got units of 13-year-olds with Panzerfausts, and then you've got these guys coming out with the very latest sort of Star Trek technology type infrared night sights. And, it's just that very weird part of the war where you've got those two things happening at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, you look at this though, and it's like Hydra out of those Marvel movies. Like this is why this is where they get the idea from, because they got all this almost science fiction sort of stuff.
Yeah. But I love the fact that you have to have your own like black searchlight stuck on the top of it. And I put the Uhu in the way, but there's a power pack that the guy's carrying around. Like there's a 1940s battery that the guy has to carry around to make his rifle go.
Well, but how does it work though? I mean, I didn't look into it properly, but so you've got the black searchlight, but that only reflects off certain things usually.
So no, the black searchlight shoots out infrared, so it's like a non-visible light spotlight.
Yeah.
So the telescope part is an infrared scope, so it actually sees infrared rather than visible light.
But it's only going to see what you're pointing the searchlight. I mean, I guess
absolutely. But that's how rifles work. Like where you point them at, that's where the bullet goes.
Yeah, but I mean, how do they know what they're targeting?
Well, because you can see it with the searchlight.
But
Searchlight
why?
will illuminate it, and the telescope allows you to see the infrared.
So the searchlight shoots out infrared.
I think they should bring them out so I can see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so that's how that works.
And it's dangerous enough getting shot at, but imagine getting shot at with a big load of battery acid on your back.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1940s battery technology was not up for it. But yeah, and the same technology is available for Panthers and Jagdpanthers. So again, same thing. You've got the big infrared searchlight, which pumps out a lot of non-visible light. But then you've got the sight, which actually it's not looking for visible light. It's looking for the infrared stuff and translates it to visible light that you can see.
And I think there was a lot of other equipment relating to that inside the Panther too. That caused a lot of consternation in the crew. They lost quite a bit of internal storage space, for shells and things.
Right. Yeah, I don't know about that, but there's also there's a sight for it on the driver's position as well, so they can see to drive at night. So it's Trekan saying, here we go. The Volkssturm blister comes with an MG team, an MG 0815 from World War One. Yeah. They were really emptying out every armory and everything they had.
Oh, really? I'll have to have a look at that.
Yeah. There's the machine gun team is an MG 08. So what else have we got? Probably really haven't got time. We're nearly an hour and a half. So I did want to talk about Unternehmen Sonnenwende, the Operation Solstice, which was basically the 11th SS Panzer Army doing a counterattack, basically trying to stop the Soviet advance by doing like a hook. But it just didn't have enough combat power to do it.
When was this?
So this is as the Soviets are advancing. They haven't then moved up to the sea yet and done the cut-off.
Oh, so before this got cut off. Yeah.
Yeah, so as they're advancing on Berlin, they're trying to use the 11th SS Panzer Army to basically do an encirclement to slow them down and stop them at that stage. The first Belorussian front's push as it comes up. And interestingly, as far as I remember, that was the first operation after Heinrich Himmler took on the role of leading the SS. So he actually became like a general. And this did not work.
General?
Like a general.
Yeah, I'm like a general.
That's a Madonna thing, like a general commanding for the very first time. Oh, we're going to get so demonetized. So anyway, yeah, that didn't work. And that was just because the 11th SS Panzer Army on paper had a bunch of tanks and stuff, but that wasn't actually what they had left. And there wasn't enough fuel or ammo or anything for it to ever be realistically workable. And of course, Seelow Heights. We won't talk about that too much, but that's the quintessential battle for the approaches to Berlin. where the 9th Fallschirmjäger are trying to stop. So the Russians are having to advance over a river crossing, along a floodplain, up towards a bunch of hills. Not big hills, 60 to 100 meters, but it's enough to give you a really good, if you're the German defender, really good sight lines down along the flat open plain, which is really good when you've got, I don't know, 88 flat guns that you can shoot at people with.
Yeah.
And one of the things with this is the 9th Fallschirmjäger are reconstituted. So the Fallschirmjäger worked hard at Normandy and they worked hard at the Bulge. These guys aren't experienced Fallschirmjäger anymore. These guys are still much more green. And they're being used as basically elite infantry.
Yeah, Luftwaffe ground crew and such like who'd been stripped away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also the Russians had too much stuff. So part of the reason for the slowness of the advance, and it took them like 4 days to come up and clear the Seelow Heights. But part of it was the 8th Guards Army, all their tanks got caught up in the artillery for the infantry units moving forward as well. So, they're busy ordering units to the front, and there's only so many roads that you can go across. And that got quite tangled through there.
The 9th Fallschirmjäger Division also got parceled out a lot too. So it wasn't the whole division. They got parceled out into fortresses, doing this, trying to delay the Soviets. So,
But there just wasn't enough combat power to really realistically have a go at stopping them.
It wouldn't have mattered if it was two equivalents of them. It wouldn't have mattered, I don't think.
Yeah.
Would have taken a little bit longer, but
It was just the ground that slowed the Soviets up, really, the difficulties of squeezing everything through there. And I think this is the one time where Zhukov didn't take or make a big effort to survey the battlefield. He's like, as he would normally do, he just went, we're going through there. That's the shortest route. We'll go through there.
Yeah.
And if he had stopped and looked at it, he maybe would have went a different way, or at least planned it differently.
Yep, fair enough. So those are all the sort of battles that are covered in the Berlin German thing in the January through May 1945 through there, which I think brings us to the end of all the fun stuff. So yeah, that's Berlin German. So does anybody have any comments about what we've covered through there, either the product releases, anything anybody's looking for, or the battles we've talked about?
I think one of those training tank companies, that'd be a really cool way to get a whole heap of old stuff. A good conversion job, a lot of old tanks that, the odd model that you've got in your collection that doesn't really fit in anything, well, you can kind of slam all that in, and that'd be cool. Also looking forward to having, they're re-releasing the Panzer 38T
Aufklärer. Yeah, the 2 centimeter armed recce vehicle based on the 38T chassis. Yeah.
So you can take a command card unit. You can actually take a whole unit of them, a whole formation of those, and a whole Lush formation, which I've been asking for ages. So I'll be
Man, that's an awful lot of resin and metal kits to have to buy and paint, though, isn't it?
I'm not sure if you've already. Well, I've assembled them. Someone's going to paint them. I don't know who that'd be. But, yeah.
There's a lot of stuff in there I'm looking forward to painting. Like, it seems like the Germans stuck a Pak 40 on just about everything they had by that time of the war. So you've got the 251 with the Pak 40 and
the half track. Yep.
The Puma with the Pak 40. Really sleek.
Yeah, because that's one of the new releases for this, isn't it? The Pak 40 armed Puma.
And the 234.
Yes. So is there anything else you're looking for? So Droxlit's saying command cards have a full Volkssturm formation.
That'd be
I don't remember seeing one.
the Volkssturm would be in Bulge, but you could do.
Are you thinking
the Berlin.
Volksgrenadier? Because the Volkssturm are the
Well, they had
militia.
the Volkssturm assault guys, but sorry, the Volks. You can I think with the options. Yeah.
Auf Clara.
Thank you, Trekkan.
Yeah. We apologise. We apologise to the entire German-speaking world for what we have done to your language. I'm so very sorry. I have told the story before about all my Austrian students, my German students laughing at my Austrian pronunciation, didn't I?
Mm.
So anyway, yep.
So I think there is command cards, I believe, to convert the Berlin Brigade guys into Volkssturm.
Right.
Yeah. And yes, you can
direct order the
all
mortars
the
into. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because all those support options for Volkssturm are available. Mortars, HMGs,
yes.
and infantry guns. They've got an infantry gun
Yep.
Option for that too.
And you can basically turn the whole force using command cards into Volkssturm.
Yep. So Droxler, I don't know if you've seen my Berlin German video, but yeah, I go through and talk about all the different units for those that are actually coming out and available. I didn't look at the formations, so that might not help answer that particular question, but it talks about all the different blisters that are coming out and even that weird Fallschirmjäger recoilless 7.5 centimeter gun thing that's coming out. So anyway, I think we have run out. So we've covered Berlin German, we've done a bunch of battles. Frank, thank you very much for coming in and replacing Christian, who has unfortunately been at work. So it's not like he's slacking off or what have you, but it was delightful to have you. I'm sorry the Restless Kaiser couldn't come along, because that would have been fun. He would have got stuck right into the battle history stuff. I
enjoyed it. It's good to chat about these things and, see what other people are thinking about it, because I'm looking forward to the Berlin German releases and getting some games on with it.
Yep. Well, we get so few games played around here, don't we, Adam, that...
Yeah, it doesn't help that I'm about 1,600 k's north of Harry, so it makes it hard to have a game.
Yeah, if I wave, it takes him ages to get back to me.
We need to get a remote game against me sometime then, folks.
Yep.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
No, we will have to do that at some stage.
Definitely.
So Droxlet says he did actually watch my video, so thank you. Appreciate that. All right, so we're probably going to wrap it up. Thank you, everybody who came along. If you haven't watched it live, and thank you very much for the people who made comments, asked questions, did that stuff live. That's what the live streams are for. That we can talk to you, you can ask us questions, things we didn't think about. Like, is there an entire Volkssturm formation? I'm going to have to go back and have a look at the book and see what I can find out. But yeah, thank you. I hope you guys really do enjoy it. Droxlit, I have no idea when the Leclerc's coming out. It'll be a while before they get back to the French. I'm really hoping so. Nordic Forces should be the next one. Is that? Am I remembering that right?
Yeah, Nordic Forces is the next one. I think it's mid-year. But
yeah, I'm hoping that the PDF of it will show up in my email inbox sometime soon. But I'm not going to hold my breath that the Australian distributor will get early stock again, or that they'll ship it if they do.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, so Droxlet says sometime in July. So yeah, middle of the year is what we're looking for that.
Well, they didn't promise.
No, they kind of vaguely hinted.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to doing some more Team Yankee, because I'm a Team Yankee buff. Love my World War II, but I mean, Team Yankee was my thing. I'm old enough to remember all that shit of us looking for whatever photos of T-72s we could find because we couldn't figure out who was what and what they had. Anyway, so I think we're going to call it. But thank you, Adam. Thank you, Frank. And thank you, everybody. And we shall see you in about a month.
Excellent. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
See ya.